The grand hall of the intergalactic palace shimmered with the light of 1,000 stars. Delegates from across the universe had gathered to witness the union of Prince Kael of Terra and Princess Zynara of the Zorathian Empire. The marriage was not one of love but of political necessity, a treaty to end a century-long war between their two civilizations. Kael stood at the altar, his heart heavy with resignation. He had heard the rumors. Princess Zynara was said to be the ugliest princess in the universe, her appearance so grotesque that even her own people averted their eyes. The music swelled, and the massive doors at the end of the hall creaked open. Kael braced himself, his jaw tightening as he prepared to face his bride. The crowd gasped, and Kael's breath caught in his throat. There she was, Princess Zynara, draped in a gown of shimmering stardust, her face obscured by a veil of woven nebula threads. She moved with an otherworldly grace, her presence commanding the room despite the whispers that followed her. Kael's mind raced. He had expected a monster, but the figure before him was enigmatic, almost mesmerizing. The ceremony passed in a blur, the ancient vows of unity echoing through the hall. When the time came to lift her veil, Kael hesitated. The crowd leaned forward, eager to witness the moment of truth. With trembling hands, he reached for the veil and pulled it aside. The gasps that followed were not of horror but of awe. Princess Zynara's face was unlike anything Kael had ever seen. Her skin was a deep, iridescent blue, her eyes like twin galaxies swirling with stars. Her features were sharp and angular, her lips a shade of violet that seemed to glow in the dim light. She was not ugly. She was breathtakingly alien, a living masterpiece of cosmic beauty. Kael's shock must have been evident, for Zynara's lips curved into a faint smile. "Disappointed?" she asked, her voice a melodic hum that resonated in his chest. "No," Kael stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're incredible." The reception that followed was a blur of music, dancing, and whispered conversations. Kael found himself unable to take his eyes off Zynara. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, her every movement imbued with a quiet strength and dignity. As the night wore on, the initial shock of her appearance faded, replaced by a growing sense of admiration. When the time came for them to retire to their chambers, Kael's nerves returned. He had no idea what to expect from their first night together. Zynara led him through the labyrinthine corridors of the palace, her hand cool and steady in his. When they reached their suite, she turned to him, her galaxy-like eyes searching his. "You've heard the rumors, haven't you?" she asked. Kael nodded, his throat dry. "I have. But they were wrong. You're not what they said." Zynara's smile was tinged with sadness. "Appearances can be deceiving, Kael. But there is more to me than meets the eye. Are you ready to see the truth?" Before he could respond, Zynara stepped back, her form beginning to shift and change. Her iridescent skin darkened, her body elongating and twisting into something entirely new. Kael's heart raced as he watched her transformation, his mind struggling to comprehend what he was seeing. When the process was complete, Zynara stood before him in her true form, a being of pure energy, her body a swirling mass of light and color, her eyes blazing with the intensity of a supernova. Kael stumbled back, his breath coming in short gasps. What are you?" "I am Zynara," she replied, her voice echoing in his mind. "This is my true form. The body you saw before was a projection, a way to make myself more palatable to those who fear what they cannot understand." Kael's mind reeled. He had married a being of energy, a creature beyond his comprehension. But as he looked at her, he felt no fear, only awe. She was beautiful in a way that defied description, a living embodiment of the universe itself. "Why did you show me this?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Because I want you to know the real me," Zynara replied. "This marriage was arranged, but it does not have to be a prison. We can choose to make it something more if you are willing." Kael took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of Zynara. She was not the monster he had feared, but a being of unimaginable beauty and power. And in that moment, he realized that he wanted to know her, to understand her, to be a part of her world. "I'm willing," he said, his voice steady. "Show me who you are." Zynara's form shifted again, her energy coalescing into a shape that was both familiar and alien. She reached out to him, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through his body. As their hands connected, Kael felt a surge of energy, a connection that transcended the physical. In that moment, he understood that their marriage was not just a political alliance but a union of two souls, bound together by the forces of the universe. Their first night together was unlike anything Kael had ever experienced. Zynara showed him wonders beyond his imagination, taking him on a journey through the stars, their bodies and minds intertwined in a dance of light and energy. By the time the sun rose on their new life together, Kael knew that he had found something truly extraordinary. In the days that followed, Kael and Zynara worked together to bridge the gap between their two civilizations. They faced challenges and opposition, but their bond only grew stronger. Kael learned to see the universe through Zynara's eyes, and in doing so, he discovered a new sense of purpose. Years later, as they stood together on the balcony of their palace, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky, Kael reflected on how far they had come. He had once feared the unknown, but Zynara had shown him that true beauty lies in the things we cannot understand. Their marriage had begun as a political necessity, but it had blossomed into a love that transcended time and space. As Zynara leaned into him, her energy warm and comforting against his skin, Kael knew that he had found his place in the universe. Together they were more than just a prince and a princess. They were a testament to the power of love and the infinite possibilities of the cosmos. And so, the prince who had married the so-called ugliest princess in the universe found himself living a life beyond his wildest dreams, a life filled with wonder, adventure, and a love that would last for eternity.